with that. Okay, look, good morning, everybody. Welcome to what is I suppose, towards the end of the PD series that we run for 2260. And as we get towards the end of each session, we decided that we really wanted to start having more conversations with more teachers around CSU, giving them a chance to not only just listen to myself or others present things at them or show things to them, but also to get more conversations happening with other educators, and thus the roundtable concept was born. And so really what we're looking for is just to have more conversations across faculty, across school, across divisions, and we have representatives from DLT and other parts of the uni here as well as the faculties, just with an opportunity to talk about the current session and things that they're engaging with. And I'll put a little bit of structure around that in a second. But firstly, I do have to acknowledge, of course, the time put in by all the people coming out this morning to share their experiences, etc., and chat with one another. So thank you very much for that. And I will put in as well, apart from being recorded, so that you know that you're being recorded, I've left an image on the front here of Mad Hatter's Tea Party, which we've decided is today's appropriate image for teachers currently. That may or may not be the case for you. So look, before I actually provide said structure around today's session, I thought I'd take the opportunity just to do a little bit of a spot quiz, survey, etc. A very simple one. There's a Menti link for you in the chat. If you click on that, it'll ask you for one response. Just from your perspective. Now, if you're not teaching itself, if it's related to teaching and learning, I'm happy for that to go in there as well. But if you were to identify your biggest challenge right at this point in time in learning and teaching, what would it be? And that may or may not crop up in what we're talking about today. And if we look at some of those going in, we get some interesting responses already. Workload, who would have thought? I concur. Very interesting. Student preparedness, absolutely. Willingness to attend, I like that one. In terms of preparedness, actually turning up in the first instance when everything is shifted online is a persistent complaint or theme that I'm hearing about a lot, for sure. Moderation, attendance, engagement, time. So we'll give that a second or two more if people are going to put things in there, but I think these probably resonate with a lot of you. All right. Moving right along. For those of you looking for a little bit of maybe guidance or suggestion around what we might be talking about today, and there is no obligation here for people to step forward and talk if you're not comfortable with that, but certainly some of the ideas people have floated with me include if they've been working with a particular new tool or technology, if they've got a persistent or a new area of challenge that's cropped up this session for some reason at all. A lot of people talk about assessment pretty regularly, and if they've taken a new tack in approaching an assessment, we'd love to hear about that. I'm sure these terms now, blending, flipping, hybridizing, gamifying, etc., have probably been hitting you in the face for some time. But if you want to talk about any of those working, not working, or potentially to be used, happy to hear about it. New courses or subjects being run. I know later in the session we'll have a couple of people join us that are talking about some new course structures being run in one of the faculties. And also relationships, whether that's teacher to teacher, student to student, etc. Those are just some suggestions, and of course everything else is on the table. And so I'm going to throw the floor open at this point, and maybe see if who would like to go first and talk a little bit about what they're doing this session, because I'm more than happy to hand it over. Otherwise, I start nominating.
I'm happy to, Lockie.
Excellent, Lou. Excellent, Lou. If you wanted to share your screen at all, you're more than welcome to. I've made people co-hosts. Otherwise, just talking is also glorious.
Thanks, Louise.
I've got nothing to share about my voice. So, hello, everybody, and lovely to meet all of you. My name is Lou Pemberton, and I'm a physiology lecturer in School of Dentistry and Medical Science. I'm also the Associate Head of School Learning and Teaching. So this is my issue. I teach large service taught physiology subjects into allied students in allied health courses. And so for years and years, I've been dealing with a lot of diversity within my cohorts. I've got students who've never done any sort of biology related stuff before. I've got students who bring heaps and heaps of prior knowledge into the class. So that's sort of been an ongoing challenge. And then, of course, we had lockdowns. And now I'm back to face-to-face teaching again on campus here in Albury. So right at the beginning of this year, I noticed something very, very different with the students that I teach. They are all very, very willing to come to class. They seem to be craving social connections with me and with each other, but they don't seem to be prepared at all for university. They seem to be missing something which I have not quite identified yet, and it's an ongoing process of getting there. They don't seem to know what they don't know. They seem to be drifting in subjects, and I'm not sure if that's related to a lot of online learning in those for the last 2 years. So what I tried to do was to really build those trust relationships between myself and them, and then to try and promote that among the class itself. So I like to bake, so I started baking and bringing food into class and having a break in the middle of class. I have about 80 in my class, and what I've noticed, I don't know if it's the baking or the social connections, but about 75 of them come every Monday to class. So it's nearly, maximum sort of attendance. And what sort of started as just me trying to get to know them, and then, encouraging them to get to know, their peers outside of their own discipline group, was I found that they lingered around the food table a lot, and they started to talk to people that they wouldn't necessarily talk to. And so we did that for a couple of weeks, and then I started sharing recipes, and now I've got them cooking and they bring their food to class. So far, nobody's gotten sick, which is a relief. But now what I do is while they're all standing up talking to each other, I actually introduce some teaching activities and learning activities as well, so that they don't necessarily just go back to their table and mingle with the people that they always sit beside. Now, I don't know if it's going to be successful, but I've really had to try and do something a little bit different because I'm worried about them. I don't think they seem to be more like my children were when they were 16 rather than 18 or 19. They seem to have missed something that I can't actually identify what it is, but if I do identify it, I'll come back here and let you know. So we'll see how we go in the SUES, but it's all about trying to really address that peer-to-peer learning as well. And, that question within the SUES, which biomedical science subjects tend to not do very well in that situation. So I might stop here. Lachlan?
I think it's fascinating. Something that a lot of us, I guess, talk about in different ways, but find it hard to exactly sort of conceptualize, is this idea of learner mentality, and a lot of certainly a lot of colleagues of mine, I think we sometimes get stuck in nostalgia is the wrong word, but basically thinking about what it was like as a student when we were students ourselves, and find it really difficult to kind of equate that to having changed so radically to now that we can't just bridge that easily. That there are modern equivalents. So I think, as you said, try anything if it's possible to try and build some of those bridges. So I'd be interested to hear other people's ideas and whether they've tried other things, either face to face or even in online. We struggle with relationship building in online. It's absolutely a barrier. Not to mention even the structure of the way we put together learning in online environments is almost always a solo pursuit activity, unless a lot of work goes into it. So what does everyone else think?
I don't know if you can hear me. Is my mic going well?
Yeah,
cool,
we
just
can.
checking. I've definitely struggled with my online students this session, simply in just getting attendance. It's not something that I struggle with face to face, because in that regard, I usually certainly bring a lot of treats. We have a lot of breaks and we just have a lot of laughs. I also bring along a lot of memes in my slides to just keep people happy and laughing through what can be some really hard topics, because I'm in criminology, so we can go through some pretty hard-hitting topics. So we need to try and keep things fun where we can. But online, it's been a lot harder to get anyone. And I think I've got a class of 35, and I started off with getting 5 students per week to my meetings, and now I've got 1. And she's absolutely dynamite, and it's because I've had her in previous online classes, so she comes along and she's great. But I can't just it's just one-on-one really at this point. And I find that really, it is just a bit disheartening really when you have a cohort of 35. And I understand that it's flexible study, and we need to understand that not everyone can make it, but out of 35, 1 student, it's pretty disappointing. And we've tried a few things in our time. I'm sure everyone has, doing live questioning like the Mentimeter and whatnot, but it does become hard when you're starting at that point where you do have 5 or 1 student. 5 you can do something with, but 1, it's hard to use Mentimeter. It's not exactly anonymous at that point. It's just been a bit tough in that regard.
Louise, can I just ask you, what time of the day is that particular lesson?
Lunchtime. So it's perfect. It's 1 o'clock on a Monday.
What, for Louise's?
For me? For Lulu or for
do you mean me?
Sorry, for Lulu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, Louise. So yours is 1 o'clock. Yeah.
Mine's 5:30.
Yeah, I've got a 5:30 with about a cohort of 35, and it's averaging around about the 4 or 5 mark, predominantly post-grad students, mature students already in the job. I find who do seem to come back and make the time or allow the time to be there.
The one student I have, she's a single mum, and she has her mum come over and look after her lovely child. Like, she really puts in a lot of effort to be there.
Incredible.
So it's kind of a bit annoying because you wonder where is the rest of the cohort in that way. But yeah, it's on a Tuesday. Oh, it's 4:30 to 5 actually. 4:30 to 5:30. My apologies. So yeah, it's that time, Adrian.
Okay, right. Yeah, mine's a 5:30, but I out of 30 I get 5 regulars. Sometimes a bit bigger.
So I had that situation as well with an online class, and I agree, it's really hard to get a very high proportion of them turning up. But I switched mine from a 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, which was awful for me. But I did get more attending because they'd put the kids to bed or whatever they had, caring sort of stuff they had to do. They finished it, but it was really late. By the time you get home, it was like 10 o'clock or something.
I've definitely done a few of those. I did a 8 till 9 one the other session, and I just find that my brain kind of turns off at 8 p.m. and I want to give students the best of me. And so it is that tough thing, because you're like, when can I do this? It's going to suit everyone. And then I'm still going to be a good presenter, a good, good in the brain to still do it.
And it's also difficult too, because the sustainability after hours, not all academics have that flexibility to be able to offer that to the students. And so then you have that difficulty carrying that over within the faculty or within the team environment there as well. To accommodate that, the one thing that I have put in is a drop-in session after hours, where I allow students to come in, and if they want to go over any of the content from the tutorial, they can have that one-on-one discussion with myself, and I find that useful. And then I can shorten that down to like a half an hour. I can answer a few emails or tidy up some things in the background if no one turns up, or go into breakup rooms if people want to have a private discussion there. But yeah.
And Brendan, is that's separate to the weekly meeting?
Correct. So I'll do the weekly meeting, and then I'll do it that evening as well. So hopefully they can watch it there, or sorry, I give it 2 days gap so they can have time to watch the tutorial. And so then if they've got any discussions that they want to bring, then I make myself available there. Yeah.
That sounds fantastic. Because I would like to do something like that, but I am a sessional staff member, and I'm wondering about the sort of logistics of that.
Yeah. So what do you mean by the logistics of that? Like, so of creating it at home?
Oh, well, being paid for it, because you have to say, I want to do an extra drop-in session with students.
I suppose, you'll probably need to talk with your team and just say, look, is this an option that we can offer to our students? And then maybe get some hours back that way. But true. That's fair.
Absolutely.
Fair point.
So look, we have managed to cover off on a number of the points in the word cloud there: workload, engagement, attendance. I think motivation is in there. We've managed to get them into the very first topic. So it's obviously on people's mind, which is excellent, and the whole reason that we are getting together to share some of this stuff. But I will tick things along a little bit so we can hear some other ideas. Thank you, Lou, for taking the baton first off. Very good of you. Who would like to speak next?
I can continue on if you like.
Beautiful. We love a volunteer. Thank you, Brendan.
That's all right. So I'm in with the Faculty of Nursing here at Charles Sturt Uni, and I've got a nursing background. So a lot of my time is time management sister. I don't know if you hear that all the time in nursing, but we try and increase our efficiency. The biggest one that I found is communicating with other people that you need to rely on within your team. We've got huge cohorts between maybe 600 to 700 students each subject. And so you've got moderation meetings needing to occur, and you need to really rely on your marking team there as well. And so, and obviously with COVID and the pandemic, our increases or special considerations increased significantly there as well. So then trying to communicate where everybody's at with extensions and things like that is a minefield in its own. So what I found that is when I look at my my grade center, or I strongly encourage you, whichever faculty you're with, is talk to whoever who has good background around grade center, and try and set that up as your, I suppose, a live Excel spreadsheet for all your information. If you like, I can just quickly show you my grade center, and it's nothing great, it's not huge, but it's just little things that that can just help you, I hope, with just some of your time management options there. I'll just bring this down and I'll just grab this across. So here's one example, is with one of our grade centers. What I've done here is that I found really useful was putting in this extension date column with the due date and when it was returned, so that then I have can record here when I've approved that through the processes of, obviously once it gets approved through the special consideration request, I put it here. So then that allows me then to, one, I can make sure that I'm not extending them past when the students have expecting to return it back to the students. So I've got it all the information here for me to access. And then when the time comes and I need to share this document with my markers, I can download it, get it into an Excel spreadsheet, and it's all there. Because I find that there tends to be lots of Excel spreadsheets going around and you get lost in your own Excel spreadsheets. And so I found that if I try and make my grade center as much as my live Excel spreadsheet as much as possible, it just helps me with the coordination and the movement of all the moving parts that are happening. I then can also put in, obviously, comments. So if I've got someone with a grade pending or whatever information there, waiting for more information, I've got a bit of extra columns within the compulsory ones there to be able to know where I'm at with my students there as well. And then when at the end of session, when Grade Centre does close, you can print this off prior to Grade Centre closing down, and then you've got your live document there to be able to refer back to if any change of grades need to occur there as well. So I just can't stress that, I suppose, that enough, is that the ability to just maximize that grade center. And the way that I tried to maximize it is turn that into my live Excel spreadsheet. And so that then when I then export it out, I can then communicate that to and share that to whoever I want. And then I'm not having to update all different types of documents within my own files there as well. So yeah, and that's my input.
Thanks, Brendan. And I think we've had a bunch of chat going on at the same time. We have people using it, if not in the same way that you're talking about, for very similar types of utility, basically to help facilitate everything else that's going on and not having information spread all over the place and potentially getting missed. So whether that's for coordination of marking teams or moderation or additional commentary or other things going on, starting at that single central shared point that we know everyone has access to seems like a very smart idea to me also.
Where Rachel mentioned about the moderation and our centre, we had to create that column and indicate which ones have been moderated and indicate whether they've gone up or down in terms of the grade as well. So I think that's something that shouldn't be missed here in that conversation. Again, capturing that other piece of information.
Absolutely.
It's true, because it makes it nice and easy then for Quasar, because I can go through and say, oh, well, look, I know I did 15 here and moderated 20 over here. And it's a really nice, quick, as well as helping all the marking team come together. Because as I put in the chat, I used to use a Google Drive Excel file, and it just got so messy and people were typing over things and then people weren't seeing things. But having it all there in the grade center in those text columns is just fantastic. As Brendan was saying, it just brings it all together.
And just editing it, like that little thing about putting when the dates are during the assignments. I know it just sounds a little trivial, but
no, it's good if you've got a team.
And if you can't find that information, then you got to go back out and go back into your subject outline, and you're like, oh crap, what was that date again? And yeah, it's just, I try and make it as live as much.
It put my old governance head on. It's one source of truth, which is what I like.
I hate to use a phrase that we're probably all sick of. Now, I know I am, but when we go to the new LMS, start with that, all of the solutions that we're looking at the moment all have a level of sophistication in terms of being able to add additional notes and moderation and other commentary areas that students can't see against every task and student level. So I mean, we're talking about a manual process to add another column so that we can capture that information. It will be part of the next environment. It'll just be part of each entry that you can go into each of those areas and add that information to help coordination and address some of the issues that we're talking about.
What's the timeline for that, Lachlan, the new LMS?
Oh, how long you got?
Just give me a year and a month or a session.
You're asking for a lot. At the moment, latest information is that we'll be with Blackboard at least until 2024.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
And that's as loose as I can go.
That's fine. I just wanted to know when I
That's
needed
a lot
to
of
panic.
time. Yeah.
That's fine. That's a long time at uni, isn't it? So
Yeah. All right. Look, at that point, I'm going to hand over to Kirsten Locke. Thank you very much, Brendan, for raising that one, and we'll keep the bus rolling.
It will be rolling because I feel like some of what I'm going to say is going to be a bit redundant because Brendan talked about what I was going to talk about with the grade centre, well, partly. So let me just share my screen. So I just wanted to talk about working with a really large cohort or large cohorts with so maybe 500 students and 15 staff. And so the first way that we do that is we have an organisation site that we set up to work with our sessionals. So we have an introduction, with the framework we use, so they're all on that same page because all of our teaching, most of it anyway, about 90% is online. And then we use this to communicate with markers and other sessionals. So if I'm looking for particular markers, then I can send an announcement to all the sessionals. We have a discussion board here where, it's going to take a second, where we complete moderation. So for example, my subject is here. And this is where all the markers come together as a team. We talk about moderation, any other questions they've got, late penalties. So this was our first time using Turnitin. So I just recorded a quick video on Zoom to explain to all the markers how to use Turnitin for marking. And then they respond, I respond back to them, and so on. We do have pets, which is one of my colleagues set up just to that relationship building between sessionals as well is really nice. We've got some PD, some mini lectures. So if there's something that I want the whole teaching team, the whole sessional teaching team to know about, I'll record a little mini lecture. And then there's some things on their career development as well, because we have some sessionals that are happy just doing a little bit of marking and that's it. And we have others that are building an academic career. So we kind of want to meet them where they are and support them like that. And then just in resources, things like a comment bank, referencing, academic integrity, terminology. So everything they would really need, the idea is it's right here in this org site. So that's kind of how we develop the relationship with the sessionals so that they feel, well, because they are a part of their team, of our team, and we want them to feel that they're a part of our team too. So it's shared experiences and so on. And then we go into the subject, and these are my markers. So we set up marking groups with however many they are contracted for. And that also carries across to Turnitin. So when they're in Turnitin, they can get their own group. I'm just going to close that one. And then in the Grade Centre, similar to what Brendan was talking about, I just took out a lot of the information that was, surnames and student numbers. But I have an extension column that the students can also see. So I made that one visible so that they're not emailing, because we use Assist and I don't want them to keep emailing and say, oh, did I get that extension or not? So I just log them and they can see it as well when they go to their grades. Color code marking really helps in moderation because I know that I want to see all of the example HDs and fails, and you can see on this one there. And I have the list of who's marking what. So it means that if a student contacts me, I can quickly see who the marker was and so on. So right at the beginning of session, it takes about maybe 10 minutes. And I set up all of the columns at the beginning for marker and moderation. And if anything else is needed in there. And I set up the color coding. I think that's all.
How would you set up the color coding?
Just in here, manage grading color codes. Stuart McKinney helped me with this the first time. You've got to enable it, and then you just set up your own grade ranges there. So then the information from this can go straight across into Quasar. So I can see how many I moderated, whether they went up or down. And so I can see, for example, there's one marker that I changed a few of hers. And so then I'll do extra work with that marker to get on the same page for assessment 2. So everything that the sessional staff have to do either happens in that hub where it's doing the actual moderation activities and then having a moderation conversation. So that's also really transparent, and it's a record of how that happened. And then across here on the in the grade center, which they all have access to, and in the mod column, while they're marking, if there's any that they're not sure about, they'll just write mod please in there, because I do all HDs, fails, and a range of others. But there might be one where markers just think, I'm just not sure about this one. I want someone else to look at it. So they just indicate it in that column. So I think that's it.
I like how you open up the extensions to the students. I reckon that's fantastic.
That was
like
a new one, actually. We only just thought of that one.
Yeah. That's
Great
fantastic.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
it
get
is, isn't it?
CMS requests?
Sorry?
Kirsten, do you get CMS requests or CRM requests from students?
Yes.
Because we deal with large cohorts, so we have that relationship with that system, you know, the CMS, and then you've got yours. So do you manage both of those, and then do you feed one piece of result into the other?
So do you mean extensions?
Well, students can use the CMS, can't they, to message us to say, hey, I want to, you know, I've got a query with large
Actually,
cohorts.
no, I never get student communication through that.
Oh, don't you? Okay, because
No.
we deal with school policing. We
Okay.
have a sort of team who deal with that side.
Yeah.
Because in a way, sometimes I feel that, pardon me saying it, but CRM or CMS stuff is like a duplication in our world. I much prefer your front facing, what you've got there, but it does exist somewhere.
And it is quite time consuming because we use assist, which means students can set their own, within parameters, they can set their own due date. I don't log those extensions until the day before the task is due, because there's a lot of them. I have, say, 450 students, and maybe 250 to 300 will want at least an extra 2 days or something. But I find it quite meditative. I just do it right at the end, log them. I'm fine with it. So,
But there's an economy of scales here, because once you set it up, it's all there, isn't it?
yeah.
You know, so good.
Yeah.
I'm going to mention your name back with the School of Policing, Kirsten.
Well, I love my grade centre, so I'm very happy with grade centres with anyone.
Yeah, we've got a team. I might get them to, it might be a good bit of PD as well to sort of link them up with you at some point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we're connecting the police with Kirsten at this point.
Yes, big bad police.
It's, yeah, better than it sounds.
All right.
No, they're CSU staff. They're very nice.
All right, thank you. Well, look, Adrian, whilst you've got the floor at the moment, would you like to talk a little bit about what you've been doing this session?
So I've been teaching EMG 100, which is an introduction to emergency management. So I do that with the Australian Graduate School of Policing and Security. And then under that, and it took me a while to get my head around it, we have the Centre for Law and Justice, isn't it, Lulu? And I teach JST 117, which is Introduction to Intelligence. And that's from the perspective of criminal intelligence rather than artificial intelligence and stuff like that. So defense intelligence, bad stuff, you know, trying to stop those things. I mean, I'm under some real esteemed company here when you hear what people have been saying. So my stuff is fairly basic. I had a question to throw out, Lachlan, is how do you know if a student's got a disability or a disability plan? And I'll tell you why. I've marked somebody and I'm thinking this is, you know, there's some issues with this particular paper, etc., etc. It's gone for moderation. I speak to a colleague and that colleague had the same student and they put in their disability plan as a special cons. So I couldn't see it on banner, and because of obviously these privacy issues, where do we go? What's the link?
They have
Mm.
it to us.
I only know if they
Channel.
send it to me. That's it. If
Yeah.
they don't send it to me, I don't know.
Actually, I don't know. So I'm looking through the lens of this particular document. Then I see there's some strategies that this person has. This person has dyslexia and 2 other types of disabilities, and I'm thinking, wow, we're now week 7, and I now know this, or whatever we are now, and I'm like, I'm annoyed with myself, but I'm also trying to understand where have I missed it, or is it just the system it doesn't talk to us.
Adrian, if you set your assessments up through the exams office at all, they will set up the extra requirements independently of the subject coordinator, but that's for exams, I think, not other assessment items.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So these are like other assignments.
Yeah.
We get the students to email us or email the subject coordinator at the start of session. So maybe in their subject outline or something like that, you could put an information to your students and say it's your responsibility to touch base with the subject coordinator if you've got a SUP.
Yeah.
And so then what I do then, I'll go into my grade center and put SAP in my comments in grade center, so that then I've got that identified for my student there. Like I said, try and keep all that information in grade center again, but I think it should be the student's responsibility to contact, and that should probably be communicated when they start session.
Okay,
we did
that's a
some
good
PD
tip.
with disability support, and that's the only way you can get it through the students, and they're told that it's their responsibility. So I guess if they choose not to, but it's a good idea at the beginning of the session, encouraging them to.
I think the characteristics are avoidance as well. So I think the characteristics of the student is avoidance of some of the challenges. So I'll share my screen in Lachlan on. Shall I?
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to add one other comment in relation to your question. I've also seen in the past that members of the support team have gotten in contact with the academic, not identifying particular students necessarily, but it was about where, shall we say, issues or challenges within the way that subject sites or the delivery had been handled that potentially needed adjustment of sorts. So they're working with the academics, etc. But that sort of stuff has lead times and other implications as well. But Kirsten mentioned the support team as well, and it might be worthwhile if I get something formal as well from Sandy Boyd and other members of the team about the process and I guess a formal response, if there is one, from the disability support team.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
So in the Intel world, we excuse me, in the intelligence world, I basically assume the role of the intelligence manager for the course. So they are intelligence officers or intelligence analysts. So the students, my background's been in policing and then over here in fraud and corruption control. So a lot of intelligence work in that, if you like. So I assume the role as the manager, they assume the role as the intelligence officer. And what we get them to do when they first come in, and you've all seen Padlet. So as a sort of to scaffold their skills, they introduce themselves in Padlet. So they get used to using Padlet if they haven't used it. We then get them to come up with an idea of a crime problem, not a crime case of an individual, but a crime problem. And so they look at a crime problem less than 3 months old, and their job then is to pop it on to the notice board. And this is the notice board inside the intelligence office. So they're walking along, let's say, Adrian, I think there's a problem here. And they go, here's the problem. And they bang it against the notice board. It's their post-it. And they tell me what the problem is and perhaps how they want to frame it. And then they have to get approval in relation to that crime. And it's amazing what the students come up with, the different types of crime. And then they get approval, which forms part of the rubric. And so let me just move that out of the way. So as you see here, different, like from fraud, violent crime, bikie gangs. It was interesting because the last 2 years we had how crime has been affected by COVID. So a lot of them, and this session, they haven't focused towards COVID and the impacts of COVID on it. So once they have that approved, they then do their intelligence work. So I suppose the carrot for the students is the fact that they pick their own crime, and then they pick their own crime to then develop into a research and analysis report, and then they go into then producing a product for the intelligence, which is intelligence for action. For assessment 5, we use the analogy about they're peeling an onion. And so sometimes students dive in. There's 20 different biases that we teach them that they can jump in and already know answers and things. And I've actually had that in class where the students have said, oh, I know what's wrong. I know what's wrong with that suburb. And so you've got to be careful not to, you've got to support the student, but also try to unpick their thought, their think process. So we get them to go through this process here of trying to understand what the issue is, and then touch a break and integrate and so on. And I suppose my selling point to them is that each time it builds on each of the assessments, but also it's about skills that they're already perhaps got through your classes and other classes across the university, but perhaps it builds some skills you can translate in other subjects. So we're not just thinking of it in the box of the criminal intelligence world. So that's really it. Was that the one, Lachlan, you wanted me to talk about? I think
that's great. Thank you. And you've touched on a couple of interesting approaches for the task there. I really, it's a persistent challenge with Padlet because there's so much functionality in the tool, but the problem is we can't keep it private enough to make it effective for actual assessment submission itself, which means that using it as the precursor to an assessment or as part of the initial steps before ultimate submission makes a lot of sense, because it is very powerful, incredibly intuitive, easy to use, easy for everyone to build, etc. And I think that kind of ideas board or helping to narrow the focus before the task submission and getting your buy-in on that before the task itself is a very clever way to approach things. So
yeah, and it takes a long time just to frame the problem, about what their aim is, and and things like that, and then whether it's global, the scope, or whether it's New South Wales, or if it's a comparison with another state or another country, so yeah, it's still work in progress, folks, but that's what I'm doing.
Excellent. We have a question from Lou Pemberton as well. How big's your cohort, Adrian?
So it's a mixture. It's online and face-to-face. So 27 face-to-face, something like that, 25 face-to-face, and then the remainder online.
Excellent. And I know that a lot of the subjects as well are sometimes, I'm not sure if they still have a third internal offering at Port as well, Adrian, as well. So Bathurst internal, distance and Port.
Not Bathurst internal this year. So just Port internal and then the online. And that's why I mentioned that you get the different cohort. I've had people who are employed as investigators in other agencies and intelligence officers come on the course. So I get that post-grad bit as well. So I'm certainly on my toes.
All right.
So
thank you very much for that. And keep rolling things along. I note also we're joined by Ros Cox. Good to see you, Ros. Thank you for coming. And I definitely wanted to see you here if you're in a position to share with us a little bit about your experiences at the moment with the new BCom. We've got a lot of people who would love to hear about them.
I noticed my friend Ingrid is here. So Ingrid is just, she supported us with the latest subject I'm teaching at the moment, 133. But I thought for the purposes, I'm sort of a bit intimidated by this crowd because I feel like some of the things that we do maybe don't measure up compared to, amazing uses of Padlet and Grade Center, et cetera, But I'll briefly share what we've been doing over here. But as Lachlan mentioned, we've got a whole new BCom degree that we're rolling out for the first time this year. And the principle behind it is that we would use interesting videos from prestigious and experienced alumni to help with sharing content. So that's kind of a very quick way to sort of say what's going on. So what we've done is set up topics in the normal way that we do, and then we use little videos like this one from Adam Shand. I don't know whether you can hear that. But Adam Shand, I'll just pause for a second so that the music's not competing. I don't know, did you hear any of that? I don't know, but
No,
Adam
we're not hearing it, Ross. Sorry. Yep,
okay,
sorry. That's
all right. I'll put up there if I can. I don't know if that's going to work. No, it's not. Anyway, what we did with every topic that we run is have a video. In this case, it's from Adam Shand. There he is. Adam Shand is a CSU alumni from the communication degree. He's a Walkley Award-winning journalist and podcaster, and he has a sort of 10-15 minute video. They're all about that sort of length of time, where he talks about what it means to be a writer, what it means to be a broadcaster, what it means to, you know, have a news sense and have important stories and information to be shared. So we have all of those, you know, a kind of significant video, sometimes two, throughout the subject content. And what it gives for our students is much more, I guess, power and authenticity to the kinds of things that we're telling them. We're lucky within, sorry, I'll just stop sharing for a second so I can see your faces. We're lucky within our communication school, and I guess Adrian was hinting at this too when he was speaking about his team, is that most of us have been you know, have worked out in industry as communications people. So we share those stories, but I guess it sort of works in two ways, this whole thing with using alumni, is it shows where you can go. So it's kind of inspiring to the students in terms of, gee, you know, I could be like Adam and maybe I'll win a Walkley, and maybe I'll get to interview Nelson Mandela. That's one of the things that he talks about in his video. And it just, what it does for our students is quite remarkable. And it is still very early days. And as I mentioned, Ingrid's helped shape the subject that I'm teaching at the moment. So it's all rolling out for the first time, but we are getting such connection with our first year students, and they are so invested in their subjects, and it's creating a real spark within our subjects. So to come back sharing again, our assessment tasks for this particular subject, where we have the videos from Adam, and who else did I have in this? I've got Morag Ramsey, who's the executive producer for Four Corners. I have Anne Carter, who was a student of mine. She's now a producer for Nightlife on the ABC. So we have really illustrious people that have agreed to help us with this. Some of them we've done sort of very flash recording of the actual interviews, but some of them we've done by Zoom because we don't really have a budget for this kind of stuff. But our assessment tasks are actually, oh, where are they? If I can find them quickly. Our assessment tasks for this are actually making videos. What assessment 2 is very much about designing the story, researching your idea, knowing your audience, finding a good and powerful interviewee, developing your interview questions, and then our final assignment was, once that interview has been done, to actually produce a podcast. And it's absolutely superb, the work that those students produced. I just think they're feeling, I don't know, communications is a funny thing to go and study. Most people, until they're through their first year, they don't actually understand what it is. And so what we have seen through this I guess, sort of innovative way of teaching content and letting our first year students see themselves, see what this skill set is, see what the power of being a storyteller is. It actually gets them so quickly into this degree and what it can give you, and seeing a future for yourself and a pathway for yourself to work in the industry out there. So that's probably all I need to say, I think. Is that sort of what you were after, Lachlan?
I think it's great. It's very, very interesting, and it is a real, certainly a hot theme at the moment about the direction, that the way we put subjects together and courses together, and making it more and more connected to, obviously, that idea of emerging professional identity and that relatedness for students, so that we don't have a divide between what's in front of them in the learning experience for several years and ultimately where they're going to. And I think some of the disciplines, that's a lot easier to do because they are constantly immersed within the activity of the professional, and for others, we need to do more, obviously, with that. So no, I love it. Any other comments from the floor at that point?
Just what I put there.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's just a great example of them feeling that they own it, and then they're doing it, like doing that video and stuff. There's a lot can come out of that.
The videos that resulted were so impressive, and a number of them are going to be played on 2MCE because they're professional level content. Like, they're excellent. They're showing such skills as interviewers and all the research that's involved in creating an engaging story. In a world where there's so much competition for stories. And that's one of the things we talk to them about. You know, in our modern world, we're just bombarded with information. So how do you create a story that really can find an audience and be appealing and interesting, make people hang on and listen to your story? So it's all important skills that we want them to have when they leave us. So there you go. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ros. Thanks for coming. And look, folks, we've got about 5 minutes before we're at time. So I think we've got an opportunity for one more story to share, if we have any takers.
I could share a quick one, Lachlan.
I'd love to hear it. Thanks, Rach.
I was going to do two, but I'll do one. We have these again, these meetings, don't we?
Every session, I promise.
Yeah, so I can do the other one. I just wanted to say quickly with Turnitin, because this is the first time my group of big markers have used it together. There were some issues, but we sorted through it. But I really found what was fantastic, and I know this is really simple, but was using, when I moderated all the fails, I was able to have that audio message to be able to really reach out and connect with, because my students are all online and most of them are ESL students. All of them work full time. Many of them have kids, and some of them haven't done essays for so long, you know, or any kind of assessment and study. So to be able to reach out with a voice and say, look, I know you tried really hard. Thank you so much for that effort. You know, don't worry, you still have a chance to be able to pass. But making that connection has really helped improve our dropout rate, because often we would have people fail that second assignment and get scared because it's their first year and they'll go out. But having that little connection again, saying it's okay, I believe in you. No, we just need to do this and this and this, and you can connect to this and this and this services, has made a big difference. So I'm not sure if other people have been using that audio feedback and turn it in. It'd be interesting to hear.
I can tell you that from the pilot so far, it's probably less than 10%, somewhere between 5 and 10% of the subjects involved in it. Where it has been used, the teachers using it love it, and the student feedback has generally been very, very positive as well. Anecdotally, there does seem to be a connection between cohort size and perceived workload associated with using it as part of the marking process. So some of the teachers I've talked to are put off a little bit by the idea of having to do their marking in a different way. I don't know, do you find that it adds to the marking time, Rach, or what do you think?
No, because you can only do up to 3 minutes. That's all of the audio that you can do. So, and it goes really quickly when you're starting to chat to them. And I just find it, instead of me writing something out, because typically I would need to write a blurb, and it just seems so flat, don't worry, you can still pass, it just seems flat. But having that intonation in your voice, that calm and gentleness, it's, it's okay. You tried really hard. It's okay. I think it makes a difference, and it is quicker than typing it. So
I think any effort to humanize online learning experience is a worthwhile endeavor, generally speaking, but obviously there are a lot of competing factors for everyone. Do we have any other opinions on use of audio feedback, whether turned in or not, in the room? Any takers?
I have a quick question for Rachel, whether that is in addition to just say a sessional marker, mark the work. Do you just add that on top of that when you're doing moderation, or is that how your markers mark?
No, my markers at the moment, because they've been a bit cautious of Turnitin because they weren't used to this particular aspect. So it's been a bit of a long haul. But I just use that personally at the moment for the fails, because we do tend to have quite a few because of our the demographics of our cohort. But it's much easier for me as a moderator then. And also Turnitin is so much easier to moderate on, because you can see your markers feedback, because it sits right there in the same spot while you scroll up and down the assessment. So it takes like 10 minutes probably off my time of having to do it. And now that the markers are actually on to what to do, it's actually cut down their time of marking as well. So they're happier. But I don't know if it can track it. So I'd have to ask Lachlan. I don't know if it tracks someone talked about tracking that audio, see if it was listened to.
I mean, all you can really tell is that they've opened the feedback studio, essentially. That's and it counts it as viewed. The student has viewed the task. So whether that's they've looked at the individual comments, opened up the bubbles, listened to the audio, it won't tell you. So it's saying, oh yeah, they've viewed their feedback or listened to their feedback, but you don't get the specifics at that point. It's not itemized. So,
but it's up to them, I suppose, isn't it? I do make a comment. So in my announcement, I'll go, those people that didn't quite pass, look out for the audio, because I've added a little audio message as well. So I try to hint to that as well. So
yeah, look, I think it's habit forming is my experience after a student's been in more than one subject or even more than one assessment, where they start getting things back like this, they engage with it more and more. And they just get used to seeing it like that and play with it more. So
yeah, it just works well. Thank you so much, Lachlan. This has been excellent. I already started setting up my grade center next session, Kristen. Or was it Kirsten? Kirsten Lock, wasn't it? I've already just add all of those extra little things and getting the color coding ready. So thank you for that advice.
Look, I'll echo your sentiments there, Rachel. I know if people are peeling off to other things, we've got other stuff going on, but it has been a wonderful session, and great to hear everyone's commentary and discussion and willingness to share the stuff that they're engaging with at the moment. So we will absolutely be running these towards the end of each session, and hope to hear some different voices next time around as well. But my thanks to everyone that's come today, either as a participant or a speaker, etc. Best of luck to all of you for the remainder of the session, and we will see you at the next one.
Thanks
Again.
Bye.
Cheers.